Anyway, I just want to encourage you to, find out about the drug court in your own communities, because I tell you, it does work. And recently, Judge Manley opened up the court, opened up the court to provide a historical trauma presentation. And I'll tell you, that courtroom was full. And to me, it was a historic event that something like that would happen in the Lake County Courthouse. And it was an hour and a half presentation. And by the time it was over, it was so unbelievable, the trauma that Natives went through. And I'm sure most of you know this, you already probably read about it, but it was an eye opener for me. I mean, I even cried during when they talked about the boarding school part of it. But if you think about it, you think about the disease that came, the smallpox, all of that. And then you move on to, let me put my glasses on, I wrote this down. Smallpox, and then you talk about the massacres, and then you talk about the Allotment Act and the removal of tribes, and the Sand Creek Massacre, and then you talk about the boarding schools, and you get to that point and you see those little tiny handcuffs, about this big handcuffs. And you think, wow, what were those used for? And then you find out about the loss of life of children. It made me very emotional. And then you continue on of not only the boarding schools, but the collateral damage it's caused. And so, and all of that came from Judge Manley, just one person in the county who, continues to understand and learn himself, and wanted the attorneys there to understand. But the Indian people also in the room were like, I never put this whole thing together to understand this generational and historical trauma thing until it was said, and it was very impactful. And so, I think hats off to Judge Manley and what he's done. But I'm a true believer. I'm no longer on the court. I've had to resign. I didn't have to resign. It just got to be a big lift with Boys and Girls Club. I mean, I'm involved in too much. So I had to back off, but they still call me quite a bit. I'm trying to get right now, open the women's shelter right over here. And it's really up to the council and staff whether we can do that. But, there's some great things happening. So I just, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask me, and hopefully I can answer those. But yeah, there's great things going on and great success. So thank you for listening. And I hope I just didn't ramble.
Martin, did you have anything? Any issues?
Well, I guess I used my introduction time to do that, so I could say it all again just to make it official. But no, I think that we are, a lot of the issues that Carol talks about are really critical for our tribes here. We have, if you look at the true history of this state and the nation, our tribe's history is intertwined with that, and we are definitely successful as a confederated tribes, but we definitely have our issues here as well. And so I think that looking at those traumas that were inflicted on our parents and grandparents, and we are still feeling the effects of those. If you don't know what historical trauma is, I would really encourage you all to look into that. It's something that's kind of come to light a little bit with discoveries in Canada. A lot of the First Nation people have suffered the same or worse that we had here. So you as leaders, I feel like should be informed with that. It's something that is definitely part of our history, and shouldn't be forgotten, because, like I said, we are still affected by that. A lot of some of the things that I was speaking about earlier with access, to medical things and technology, and A lot of those things that we really need here could be greatly helped with, broadband. COVID really showed us that we can do a lot virtually. I mean, this is nice to sit in a situation like this, but it's also nice to be able to, stream or Zoom or have appointments via tele if you are mobily impaired or if you're immune compromised and don't want to go out. And so those kind of things are very important. Our children that can do the same with mental health. And, I had a family member who did, virtual appointments. Those are great, but they're difficult if you don't have access. So that alone, just the ability to actually do that, it's like having, going old school and having a landline almost anymore. I mean, it's that important for people to have access to technology. And so I think that, we are doing our best to keep up, but I think that, as a state, you guys could definitely kind of look at our area and all the reservations in Montana. I mean, we all suffer the same, very similar histories. Some of us have just done a little bit better, and that's not without sacrifice and consequence. We do very well in some areas, but the things we don't talk about, the language and the culture, those things have been not kept as strong as we would like. We actually just commemorated the signing of our Hellgate Treaty of 1855 on July 16th. That is something that I feel like, this people in the state, should really look at. We have done well because of that, but we've also had our ills because of that. And we maintain our sovereignty. We maintain our distinct uniqueness within Indian country as 3 distinct tribes here. And we are definitely in a position now that we are looking to you as another nation, and we will continue to exercise our sovereignty as well and do what we can to help our people. But it's also, in turn, I feel like we got to strengthen our communities as well. So with that, I hope you guys have some questions. If not, I'm going to turn over to Mike.
Thank you, Martin. And I hate to ask, but we need 5 minutes for a break. They want to get under there, and IT does to, okay. So if we can just have 5 minutes for a break and come right back. All right.
They're working.
All right.
Oh, they are, yeah. Yeah, right here.
They're working. They're all working.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't need a break. Well,
All right.
thank you, IT. Go ahead, Sharon.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask some questions of Councilman Charlo. Councilman, you talked briefly about the broadband access, and last session we did talk about broadband through the ARPA money, and that there's separate money that's being also allocated for that. And the issue that we ran against was what you had mentioned, the last mile. So we're looking at fiber optic, being able to have fiber optic infrastructure put into the community. So you have the rural connection, which definitely reservations are, and looking at using then cell towers, but we know that the cell towers are insufficient in terms of providing the speed and those types of things. So have you reached out to anyone within the state for assistance in terms of I know that they're putting out money for different corporations to begin to take a look at this issue. But there's also separate monies, pots of monies out there that have been put out there. But what is your, I guess when we're talking about last mile, can you just go a little bit more into detail exactly where the, without showing us maps or anything, just basically the need, just so.
So I guess as far as your first question, yeah, we have reached out. We're going to take advantage of any funding out there that's ARPA related. We are, I always say that we have some of the best lawyers and some of our best people working on that side of it. And so, yes, we are fully going to take advantage of that. And as far as like the last mile, the 93 corridor is pretty well served. But if you look at, the west side is, Anita mentioned, in the Hot Springs and Camas Prairie, and those are very underserved. Even the area of Moise, the bison range is at, that area is a little kind of a weird, spot that there's just nothing really there. And we, even with our towers, are having a hard time. And so working with the local companies and things like that becomes very costly, or they want to make sure that they're making their own money, and we would prefer to try to give this out as at low cost as possible to the people here. And that's something that sometimes isn't always doesn't go hand in hand with business.
A follow-up, Madam Chair. So Councilman Charlotte, then the other issue, I guess, that if I recall 2 years ago, or maybe, yeah, about 2 years ago, the FCC had afforded all the tribes nationally to retain their airspace. So I'm assuming that you've reserved the airspace here on the reservation for your use.
We have, the 2.5 megahertz, we, actually that was, we were looking into that before the CARES funding. And I'm actually, looks like Rick would like to touch on that. Rick Enius is our Director of Financial Management, and we have done a lot with the 2.5, so I'll let him elaborate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Charlo. And I actually want to go back even a little bit to your last question, Representative. The Department of Commerce and our staff have been in contact specifically regarding the ARPA funding and the NTAI or IA. Tribal broadband set-asides, and we are putting in a proposal. But I don't want to minimize that. I really do think, as Martin mentioned, the need isn't going away even with this round of funding, because we're more and more every day in need of connected services, and rural areas, particularly our west side, but lots of the state, that the last mile can mean a lot of different things, and it means a lot more to communities where there's a mile or more between houses. And so if you look at the western half of our map, even this funding is going to leave gaps. And if I could encourage something, it would be a way to incentivize those local providers to, because they also want to fit. Everywhere has a need. There's a lot of households, even next to broadband corridors, that are missing last mile, and so the rural areas are. They still get missed to some degree. That being said, the funding that the legislature put aside through the ARPA is significant and helpful, and don't want to diminish that. with our 2.5 gigahertz spectrum, we did apply and have that license. And we're looking to utilize that in many ways through our towers. We have 2.5 broadcasting equipment that we are using for a lot of specifically governmental purposes, and but that's only a small portion. So we're still evaluating options for what else might ride on those airwaves. But yeah, it's a valuable opportunity. I don't know if any tribes missed it, but if they did, it would be great if it could be opened back up. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just point of information. That's one of the things that with the broadband issue and the some of the things that the state has been doing, the last mile is an issue as it's been interpreted from Washington DC, and there's been discussions back and forth that in rural America it's different than within the cities, because you can provide, most of the infrastructure is in place in the cities, whereas in the rural areas, it's not. And so that's been an issue. And I believe that it's being discussed again, but certainly I would ask that you keep abreast of it and comment where you can, as far as a nation, which your needs are in here in this area, because it is a discussion and they're trying to work it out, but there's certain hiccups that's come about because of it. So just to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything, Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and distinguished guests. Couple things. I do want to thank the support that the legislature's had for our missing and murdered Indigenous people efforts. I was really glad to see all that was happening this year, and hopefully that support will continue. We need more and more there. Another issue that I look at is the education of our children, and especially the effort putting out the Indian Education for All. I'd like to make sure that that turns into something that has substance more than just verbiage. It's so necessary, and if more Montanans were educated about the tribes throughout Montana, your partners in the legislatures would know a whole lot more about how they're affecting us and what our history has been and how we've been affected throughout history. And so making that something substantial would be so helpful. Also in connection with education, I taught for 25 years at Salish Kootenai College, and we were always fighting to get funding from the state for our non-beneficiary students. And the more you can push that to equalize the support of those non-beneficiary students coming to our tribal colleges, that is so helpful to keep resources in the hands of our colleges, because we do a good job with our colleges. Joe, you know it. Preparing people to move on to the university system and be successful, whereas the university system always seemed really unwelcoming to our tribal people at several times. And on the same note, our BIE school, Two Eagle, you had a chance to visit. We pull students from all over the districts here on the reservation, but we don't get to pull any resources with them. And so we got to depend on those federal resources to support the education of those kids who would be in those school districts. It'd be so helpful to have some support from the state for those students that are coming from all those districts to our BIE school. And then in Hot Springs, I had another issue that came up this year that I was watching, and it goes back to the state tribal water compact that we now have in place. The issue was, pardon me, a new gal had moved into the Hot Springs town and she decided to drill a well into the hot water aquifer that we've been basically utilizing. And she hit the water, and the water going to two of our wells that were being used by our tribal people. The water lost volume, and another important thing is it lost temperature. And hoping that we can get the administration of water on the reservation put in place so that we can control that kind of access. I was told that, well, the city signed off on having this well put in, and the county signed off on having this well put in, and the state had given an okay. But along the way, I asked, well, whoever talked to our tribe whether this should happen or not? And I could never get a good answer to that. So I'm hoping that support for that whole implementation of our water compact is supported well by the state. So those are a few of the issues that I looked at, and I'll pass the torch on from there.
Okay. Go ahead and then Lynn.
I'd like to address the Council Donaldson's issue on the non-beneficiary. You know, we brought a bill forward. I think we pay out for non-beneficiaries right now at $3,125 or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And that's been stagnant at that level for a long time for tribal colleges. I know that there's a kind of an inflation rate that goes for all the other colleges throughout the state that are not tribal, and they kind of move with the times. And the tribal colleges kind of have to eat that cost because there's no other avenue. So we brought a bill forward this year that was trying to bring a 2% inflation rate to help with that, plus raise the cost a little bit, but it didn't make it through. And I think that's something we'll be pushing again to try to make that happen. I think it's only fair for tribal communities and tribal colleges when non-members come to the schools, but they're also going to help the rest of the state and the rest of the communities. So it's something that I think that you'll see again coming up. I know Senator Marjo brought it before, and Senator Weber brought it before too, and we'll just keep pushing it forward, make it happen.
Also, excuse me, also on that, I carried the non-beneficiary bill in the House, and we got it through. We have to bring it up every session because it's always determined an OTO, which is one time only. And so we always have to argue that. So to a session ago, not this last session, but the previous session, I was able to get it where we paid not a reimbursement, but a payment up front. So that really helped the schools. So they would take the enrollment of, Sailors Kootenai College, Blackfeet Community College up front, and they'd have their money so that you could plan before you didn't know when you were going to get the non-beneficiary funds to support the schools. So we got that, and now we were leaving it into the House, the good hands of Representative Running Wolf and Marjo, that we were going to try again the inflationary. The tribal colleges get like $3,200 per non-beneficiary students. And PAD probably could do throw out those numbers more readily than I do, but it was like 6,500 or 7,000 per the state colleges, right? Thank you.
Okay, Lynn, do you have any issues?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the council and distinguished representatives. I'm honored to always being able to address this committee. You know, as we were starting our discussions here, the gentleman here mentioned that one of the primary reasons why we were meeting today was to provide comment and issues for the next legislative session. Well, I wanted to step back and talk about the last legislative session. There were many controversial bills that were proposed that attacked the sovereignty of Indian tribes. And, you know, I've watched how many of the representatives stood up for us, and we appreciate that. We really seriously do. One of the bills that really caught my attention was the new voting laws. As many of you know that sit on this committee, you all understand what it's like for a lot of our people to even get to the polls. Nonetheless, have these other new laws imposed on them and restricting them even more. So I'm going to be very cognizant on how this committee moves forward and strategizes to address that issue. I know you know, there's going to be a lot of opposition to any of the proposed changes, but I just want the committee to know that this is something that all of the tribes need to work together on, and it's like I said, I really look forward to seeing how we're going to move forward on this. So, item number 2. Our water compact. I'm not really sure how it works within the state government on how this committee, what type of influence you have with all the state land board, okay? One of the issues within our water compact is the transfer of state land ownership to the tribes. There is a process that has been identified, which includes identifying valuations for all the properties. Now, as many of you know, when it comes to land valuation, this could drag on for years and years. And I would like to see some type of, well, I'm not really sure, but I would like this transfer to happen sooner than later. And I'm not sure if this committee here is able to address the state land board on such an issue, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention if there is an opportunity for that to happen. One of the reasons that I bring this forward is on one state land parcel in my district, on the northern part of the reservation, there is some proposed exploration mining projects that are taking place right now today, and not only on the state lands, but on the former Flathead mines that could have detrimental effects to our environment. And we're already receiving complaints from tribal members on some that may or may not be impacted by that, but it's there. So I just wanted to bring that to all your attention, and I'm hoping that we are able to have some kind of influence with the state land board on expediting that process. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, and I think my colleagues have hit quite a few that I had down here. As I said, I kind of went through the summary and tried to look at some of the bills that you guys brought forward last year. And I think with economic development, when some of our reservations, the tourism that's going through, and I noted that one of the things that you guys had looked at was grants for the Indian country. And I think that that would be really helpful because here with the Flathead up north, I mean, our tourism is just, they did a report here a while back and it's just amazing how many tourists that we're getting, and we're not able to tap in on that economics of it. So that, I think that would be a real help. The other thing that we had been touched on was the MMIP, and I hope that we continue to all work on that issue. Over the last, I think, 3 or 4 days, there's been at least 3 individuals missing, and it's just scary. So I hope that we all continue to work on the MMIP like we have been for the state. They mentioned the language, the Montana Indian language program, and I'm glad that that continues because that is one of our top priorities, to keep our language and our culture. As we talked about over lunch there, I'm worried about the agriculture as well with the drought. And I think that that's going to hit us all pretty hard this year. So I'm hoping any kind of disaster programs or anything that they can do at the state level will keep the people in it. And then I think we all have to continue to be visual of what's going on with our climate. And I know that people don't like to talk about it, but it's out there right now, and that's part of the drought. But we are having a real problem with that, and I think it's showing this year between the fires and the records that we're breaking daily with the heat. So it's definitely going to be a problem. It's dry all over, and I see all over the state it is severely dry. So just wanted to mention that. So thank you. Does the committee have any issues or anything they'd like to discuss? Go ahead, Representative Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. To mention a little bit about the voting rights, we'd worked on that. Representative Running Wolf and us, we got in every morning at 8 o'clock and worked on it for an hour for just about, well, almost 3 weeks. We got it through the House, but they killed it in the Senate. So we've got a problem there. As for Representative Langford, our non-beneficial students has always been a problem. We had a bill for DUI task force for Fort Belknap and Fort Peck. And it was only for $150,000, but they killed it because there wasn't enough money there. So that's how we classify what they think of our problems on the reservation. And I think I was real proud of your lobbyists. They worked real hard, a lot of them. And I was really satisfied with working with them, and we got quite a bit done with them, and they always made sure that they made our Tuesday meetings, and they always had an input. So thank you.
Chair?
Go ahead.
Just one thing, I guess, we have all of this, like the Indian country development, and language preservation. That's another OTO, one time only, that we always have to argue. These one-time onlys, and we've been trying to change that. These one-time onlys, well, like language preservation has been in there, what Sharon would probably know, about 16 years. That's 8 sessions. Non-beneficiary has been in there probably just as long, but every session we have to fight for those one-time only payments. So then we just kind of pick who's going to carry that bill. We have to change that. I know that that has to change so that it's just in the budget. But that hasn't happened because basically we always get kind of voted down there. One of the things that, this is kind of silly, but it's important. Indigenous Peoples' Day. We've been carrying Indigenous Peoples' Day for 3 sessions now. And we always do a strategy, but we lose every time, but we're gonna keep bringing it up. Every time. So Shane Morgio and myself this time, before it was Bridget Smith from Fort Peck and myself and Shane again. So we're kind of rebels, I guess. But we will be bringing those. I know they're not, that's not quite as important as other things that we have, but for the Native peoples, that is quite important. One of the things that, let's see, I wanted to look at here that was brought up was the BIE schools. And I had worked in 2015 was my first session as a representative in Senate District 16. And I worked with Chairman Shelley and regarding Two Eagle River. And I believe if we think creatively that we could get that. I think the only stumbling block for the 2 BIE schools in Montana, Two Eagle River and Busby, was losing control. Because if they went into the public school system, then they would lose control of their board, of the school board. And Ronan would take over the management basically of Two Eagle River. And that was always a stumbling block, but I think if we think creatively that we could come up with some kind of, I guess, what do I want to say, authority overlap with the reservation being one school board, you know, on top of itself, on the other one, and still fit into the school system. But that would be something that we'd have to really work out, and so that those 2 schools can actually partake in everything else. You know, they always have, they have the curriculum, they have the intramural sports, they have all of this other things going on. Why not? But and I understand and I fully respect your decisions to stay out of that, because Two Eagle River is unique. And we had a wonderful tour today. Really an eye-opener. Critical race theory doesn't happen there. Everything is integrated with the cultures. And I was just flabbergasted there. It was wonderful to walk through there and see that. Thank you.
Was there any other comments from anyone else in the, oh, go ahead, ma'am.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. I come to the committee with an idea that I've talked with your tribal attorney with during session, and just thought I might share this with you. In Great Falls, we have quite a few foster care children that come from the different reservations there. And just actually learned that a family member will be, she has like a Salish daughter in her home, which is kind of cool. But they came to me wanting, the foster parents want to be involved in keeping the traditions going and the culture going when these children are in their homes, but there is no source for them to learn the language themselves or learn the culture or that. So they came to me as a legislator wanting possibly for us to build a cultural center in our community that they could go to and incorporate this into their lives in these foster homes. And about 4 miles from my home is a park facility called the First Peoples Buffalo Jump. And it has a building, it has teepees outside, it has some of the arts and crafts, some of the history, they play games there, they have events there. And it made sense to me that we would take their desire to have a cultural center and maybe move it to this park facility. And I think it's a win-win, because the more that we understand the Indian culture, the Indian history, I think it would even attract tourism to our park facilities. I'm not sure if you have anything like that. I know Jordan was going to, if I can call you Jordan, was going to look into it here to see if there's anything possibly like that, and have cultural centers around the state for all the different tribes that we could possibly incorporate language, culture, games, beading, whatever, and it would up the tourism. It would help the foster parents. I think it would also incorporate and help, like we saw at the school today, incorporating what may have been lost or what we're trying to learn into a system. And I just thought I might throw that out there. I'm trying to find an answer for that as a legislator, to maybe incorporate the park and Fish, Wildlife and Parks, OPI, the tourism agencies, and the different tribes into something that may work across the state and for you guys here in the Flathead Reservation. I also am interested in the missing Indigenous people. We experienced that as a family too, having a missing family member who ended up being murdered in the process of that. And so I feel your pain, and I know that, but if there's anything that I could do, I'd just like to offer that to you, that I would like to be part of your conversation and help in any way with that we could, because it's an awful place to be in that situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of thoughts, and I'll just start at the bottom of my list that I have here. The missing and murdered Indigenous people. I believe I've spoken in favor of that every time it's been up. It's a thing. I think if we can find the root of the cause within the tribes, I think we're going to find that that's the root of the cause in all of our society in a lot of respects. And the money I believe that the state spends on that is really it's a small ask, I think. And I believe that it's something that should continue, but kind of to go along with the floor speech I made about it this time, because I think it was $50,000 that the ask was this time for it. And I asked everybody on the floor that, whose daughter or granddaughter isn't worth the state investing $50,000 into that. And there's not one of us that can say that $50,000 isn't well spent if it saves one person. But the one thing that I really, that I would like to see, and I don't know, all the dynamics of it, but one of the things I've heard in the past is that, we don't want the sheriff in our jurisdiction, or the sheriff doesn't want the tribal enforcement in their jurisdiction, and the state police don't want to get involved with tribal matters. And I think we need to really take a look at how we can improve those relationships and get those people working together, instead of just saying, well, it's on the other side of my line and it's not my bother, because I believe that's a big issue with finding some of those young folks quickly. So, I mean, just keep that in mind as we move along here, but you know, I would like to see some advancement in those areas. I don't know that it's a problem particularly here, but around the state, I've heard that it was. And so I'll leave it at that. And I will continue to vote for that because I believe it's worth it. If all the money we ever spend on it saves one young person, it is worth it. We were talking, had a little bit of talk about transfer of state lands, you know, to the tribe. You know, some of the concerns I've heard, and if the tribe could come out with a statement or something, some of the concerns I've heard was that people, ranchers who have leased those lands for, you know, those state lands for many years are concerned that all of a sudden I may not be able to graze my cattle on that stuff. You know, my ranch may be cut in half, or my grazing rights may be just cut in half. That's a real concern. So if there's something the tribe could do to address that, to ease those fears, you know, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but those are concerns that I have heard. And the Indigenous Peoples Day, you know, we argue about it and everything else, and we always want to put it on Columbus Day. We want to take away Columbus Day, which is, you know, I understand. You know, maybe I don't understand, but I know your concerns about Columbus Day and who Columbus was. It is part of our history. We know that. I've always thought that the Indigenous Persons Day, I don't know why, but I've always felt like it should be May the 1st. It's the beginning of the spring. It's something everybody could get together and celebrate. And everybody would vote for that. I believe that if you would do it on any other day other than trying to, so it doesn't cause a division, it would be something that people could come around and celebrate and begin to, you know, so learn about your culture. If we did it on any other day, I believe it would pass the next time you did it. I would vote for it the next time. I don't believe I've ever voted for it just because of that, because of that division part. But I would vote for it the next time that it came up if it was on a different day, other than trying to take something else that somebody else believes in. I don't believe in Columbus. I mean, I believe that he was there. Has no importance to me, but it does a lot of people. And so that would be my encouragement if for a Indigenous Persons Day, put it someday early in the spring where people are ready to get out and celebrate something. And I believe we could get that passed. I would support it. I would argue for it. I'd stand up on the floor and argue for it. You know, whether that can be done or not, that's, you know, that's up to you. But and let me look at my notes here, see if there's anything else. But that's just a couple of the thoughts that are on my yeah, I think that's probably all I got for right now. So, but anyway, those are thoughts that are on my mind. And I think the big one with the state lands is the ease the concerns on some of those ranchers, that they would have the ability to still lease those lands. Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the council, and Senator Brown, thank you. I appreciate your response to that. I don't think there would be any type of threat to the existing ranchers that are currently utilizing those properties, because the tribe would give them the same opportunity to bid on those lands as we would have everybody else. We would not exclude them in that process. So I think that's probably how we can respond to them, is letting them know that there would be an equal opportunity for them to bid on that. So, so thank you for your comments and response to that. Madam Chair and members of the council, I just wanted to address the funding for the aquatic invasive species specifically for our inspecting stations here that we have throughout Western Montana. As our Madam Vice Chair mentioned, we are getting an influx of out-of-staters coming in by the thousands and thousands on a daily basis coming across Highway 93 here. And many of them are pulling boats. The reason why I bring this up is a few years back during the Bullock administration, they did provide funding to allow us to develop or create a boat inspection site in the community of Elmo, which is the ideal spot for an inspection station. So to make sure that we are not missing anybody that's coming in from the west, there are routes throughout Highway 28 that people can easily take and get right directly to the lake without going through an inspection site. So I would really like to advocate for this committee to, when the opportunity comes, we can increase the funding to start developing more stations, not just specifically for Elmo, but all around Flathead Lake. You know, that's the last of the one of the last of the clean water lakes that we have next to Glacier Park here in western Montana that we take pride in. So I just would ask you to bring that forward for us if you can. So thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Are there any other comments or issues out there?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Madam Vice Chair, Matt and Council, I'm gonna have to head out here at 2:30. Get some money for the Blackfeet tribe for inspection stations. But anyway, I just want to talk about the Flathead tribe here and how unique you guys are, and I appreciate it. You know, being a compact tribe, being a 280 tribe, being a confederated tribe with the three nations, you know, being a fractionated tribal pieces of land that you guys are trying to acquire and get back. And especially the lobbying efforts, a lot of the stuff that we worked on, your folks as lawyer and lobbyist, Jordan did an outstanding job taking special time to research and help us as legislators to get down to the facts, to help us back some of our not letting some bills get through. You know, it was a challenge, and he did a great job. I know that finally towards the end, Chairwoman Fine was able to come down when you guys released the mandate, and we appreciate her coming down. It really helped. It really does make a difference when tribal leadership comes down and speaks on behalf of issues that pertain to tribal nations. And another thing that's been put out there, and you guys probably already heard, the process of the fee to trust is made a lot easier instead of the 16-step process. Just recently, it was brought down to an 8-step process, and extending the environmental because they only had 180 days, and I think that's going out now for the whole year to make that happen, so you guys can get through the process and not have to do the whole NEPA again. So hopefully you guys take advantage of that, because that's the big issue that sits out there every year on us, on different legislators bringing that forward to acquire the tax back pay on them pieces of ground. And so we're continuously battling that. But I think the Bureau heard us loud and clear when I was calling back there to Senator Tester and all the rest of them, and even to the head of BIA, saying we need a different process to make this expedited, which you guys are also talking about on that state land board stuff. It's almost reflective of the process of fee to trust. So I think that's going to help, and it's efforts from the legislators that made that happen, because it was hindering all the tribes. And like I said, you guys are very unique over here on the CSKT. You guys are cutting edge. water compact as big as it is, and the stuff you guys have to go through to get that done. Makes us have to really be heads up and watching what you guys are doing, because it helps the rest of Indian country know how to maneuver different situations that are going to be happening. So not only, it seems like you may not feel like you guys are being progressive, but you guys are one of the biggest progressive tribes in the United States, and everybody has your eyes. All the rest of the nations have their eyes on you folks, and what's going on, especially, like I said, Feed to Trust, enrollment issues, and also on how to deal with outside influences other than tribal membership. So keep doing the good job you're doing, because we're watching and learning also. Your issues, even though they're so big in the legislative, it almost trickles down to the tribes and causes an adverse effect, because everyone thinks all tribes are the same, which they're not. And I think this group here will be learning that through our trip through Indian country, knowing the uniqueness, but you guys are at the spearhead of everything that's going on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Lemnitch, thank you. One thing I'd like to mention, and you brought it up, Senator Brown, about the MMIP, and I think half of our problem there with the influx of people is the trafficking of drugs and the trafficking of people. And that's where we do have to work together jointly, all sides. And there ain't no certain color. I mean, the alerts that I've seen has not only been Indian girls who have been taken, there's also non-Indian girls who've been took. So I think the drug trafficking and the human trafficking is a real issue. And that's where law enforcement, everybody needs it. We need more of it. And that's our problem here. It's hard, to budget and keep enough money out there for enforcement. So just a comment there. The other thing, I don't know what the other tribes have had problems with, but we were figuring with the marijuana, the legislation, and that's been a real issue for us, especially with federal funding and housing and some of the other policies that are out there that still has it as a drug. So I don't know if any of you guys have any information on that, or if the staff might want to comment on it, but between it and hemp, we're having a real problem, coming up with what's legal and what isn't. Because here, you can go right into Missoula and it's legal. And on the reservation, it's not unless they change the drugs. So that's another issue for us. And I don't know if they ever really discussed it with the tribes, but most of the tribes have a housing authority and the same, funding as we've got federally. And a drug's a drug. So that was one thing I wanted to bring up. Does anyone in the audience have anything?
Vice Chairwoman Matt, I'll just quickly respond to your comment regarding the marijuana. I don't have a lot of information. I wasn't involved with the legislation through the session. But the last thing someone had asked, I believe it was Senator Small, what was going on with the licensing for the tribes and where that was at. And Megan Moore is our staffer for our revenue committee. And she said that the section allowing the tribal licenses goes into effect in January, and that she expects the Department of Revenue to start making rules on that process later this year. She said technically the Revenue Committee that she works for has the oversight, but the Economic Affairs Interim Committee has a specific study monitoring implementation of all of the legislation. And so there expects to be a lot of information through that committee as well. We can just keep you posted and try and get you connected to the right folks so you can get the updates regularly.
Okay, thank you. It's like go ahead, Sharon.
Thank you, Vice Chairwoman. Going back to the MMIP issue, I believe there was a major case, the Cooley case, and I believe your attorney, Ms. Rhonda Swaney, would be willing to address that for everyone here. So if it's okay, we could yield some time to her.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. I was looking at the agenda. But Rhonda, if you want to come forward and talk about it.
Thank you. What I'm going to say is an encouragement for you to check with the other tribes because they'll be more impacted by the Cooley decision than our tribe is. We are a public law 280 reservation. We have concurrent jurisdiction with the state of Montana. We assume that worked both ways. It hasn't over the years, so we withdrew from misdemeanor criminal jurisdiction from the state, and that allows us, the process of going through that allowed us to come to an agreement with the county and states and local police departments to have an agreement put in place where we would stop and detain individuals who are not tribal members. Our tribal police do that. So that was in existence before the Cooley case. What the Cooley case does is open up that opportunity for all the other tribes in the state of Montana, and they're all not public law 280. So they have tribal police, federal officers, and sometimes BIA officers who might be cross-deputized. So jurisdiction was very confusing. They should help. I would encourage all those other tribes to have agreements put in place that tells under the circumstances which will make a stop, the kinds of things that are allowed during the stop, how long the stop can last, what happens if there is no available policeman from the other jurisdiction and things like that, because it will make it a lot easier for all the people crossing the reservation to understand the consequences of being stopped. And they can be searched. Yes, they can. And the Cooley case in particular occurred on the Crow Reservation in 2016. Supreme Court handed down their decision this June, and it involved a tribal policeman who tried to give assistance to an individual in a car parked in a westbound lane. The individual was under the influence. He had automatic weapons on his seat. He had methamphetamine. He had other kinds of things. And so the policeman asked him to get out of the car. He did a frisk. He called the other jurisdictional police in the area, and they encouraged the tribal officer to confiscate all the contraband. So the individual took that case all the way to the Supreme Court saying, tribes don't have any jurisdiction over non-Indians. And the Supreme Court found that, yes, it does. And it's under the Montana exceptions, second exception, and it will make our reservations safer. And again, please ask the other reservations you visit, the other tribes, how it will impact them, because it's going to be different in every situation. So jurisdiction is cleaner and clearer, but it's not completely clear yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. And again, the gentleman earlier mentioned about CSKT being aggressive and other tribes looking up to us, but staff like Rhonda Swaney, who is our attorney, we've got Ryan Rushi, we've got Mr. Thompson back there who's kind of hiding out from us, who goes back and fights for us every year. And Helena, our staff is just exceptional. We're very proud of them. They do us well. So thank them too.
Excuse me,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. May I direct the question to Ms. Sweeney? We were talking, I know Representative Running Wolf talked about the fee to trust legislation that we passed. I believe that was Senator Hertz that carried that bill. County Treasurer, Glacier County Treasurer brought this to my attention, Don Wilson, and it's regarding, there was a question on that from the fee to trust legislation. There's nothing in that legislation that says that includes individual Indians that want to turn their fee property back into trust. It's just tribes. I was just wondering if you had looked into that, or you have an opinion on that?
It's my understanding the state legislation provided an exemption only for tribes, not for individual Indians. So we have not pursued it any farther than that. Of course, we have strong feelings about the bills the legislature passed this year, including the withdrawal, the fee to trust exemption. I know there were many statements made and a lot of justifications, but I want to say that in our county, Lake County, the county is most often the entity to object or appeal a fee to trust case. So on one hand, the state gives an exemption. On the other hand, the county makes it impossible to take advantage of that exception after 5 years, and then they want repayment. So it is a little bit confusing to us what the message is.
Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We talked about this communication between the tribes and the state. Okay, we had a governor that would bring in people from the law school in Missoula, and they would explain all the laws that had been passed and all the ones that were in court. And after that, they started dwindling away. Now we've got nothing. No advice, no nothing. And that's been one of my problems, and I've argued that with every governor we've had, is we should have a class, a day class or a 2-day class at the beginning of every session to install on what's legal and what isn't legal. There's a difference between federal, tribal, and state law. Completely different. And people don't realize that, you know, when they go in, they blunder through and they write laws that probably shouldn't even be on the books. And that's all I wanted to do, is mention that if anybody's got any leverage or anything with the governors or anything. We had one governor that used to say, I know all about tribes. How many tribes are the same? I don't believe there's any of them. So anyway, that's what my 2 bits worth. So thank you.
That's a good comment, and we're going to be visiting with the governor next week. Maybe we can mention that. Thank you. Go right ahead, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Chairman Matt. I'm going to bring up something possibly a little bit controversial, but it's I had a bill called House Bill 656, which had to do with Public Law 280, and I had to research it thoroughly and just get my feet on the ground about Public Law 280 on the Flathead Indian Reservation and what it meant. And in my understanding of it, there's been several statements about no 2 tribes are alike. And I have that is, this particular bill brought that out more than any other bill I've ever had to study or research or that. And in the history of it, I think the reason I brought the bill at the behest of the county, and I have to be honest, the county wanted this bill because, not because Public Law 280 doesn't benefit the county. The Public Law 280 benefits everybody, and it benefits everybody greatly. It works very well. I think we have one of the best relationships between county government, county police, county government, state government. As far as policing policies, I think this is the best in the state. And I don't think anybody wants to endanger that. But if you actually read the law that's in the books, the Montana state law, it says the state of Montana assumes the enforcement of those laws, but they have never assumed the financial burden that it has brought to Lake County. And that's the issue that I was bringing forward with that House bill. And I never meant it as an attack on the tribe. I sincerely believe that there is a way for the county and the tribe to get together and negotiate with the federal agencies, the state agencies, to bring about a funding issue that I would say the county perceives that it's a plague on their budget, and it's costing raises of property taxes and that. But in the long run, I think there would be ultimately a negotiation, like I said, between the county, between the tribe, and the federal government, that because we're all involved. We are all involved in this issue. And I would just like to say that I didn't receive any negative comment from tribal members or anything about this. Where I received the most of the issues was it's all about taxes. It's just all about taxes, and it's the property taxes, and because of that, when we consume it down to money, we kind of lose an aspect of it, that the process is so successful, but only one group happens to be paying for that. And so if the tribe ever perceived the threat that Lake County wanted to withdraw itself from Public Law 280, in all my conversations with the county commissioners and other people in the police department and the sheriff's department, that's never been the case. I think we would just be looking forward to that everybody could get behind a cooperative agreement and have the federal government assist us with this process. And I do not see any other way around. I do not see any other way around solving Lake County's problem with this, other than cooperation between the tribal government and the Lake County and involving the federal government. So I thank you for the time that we've had here. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Reed. Is there any other comments, issues out in the audience?
Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you guys all for coming in. And thank you the first time, but Senator Reed, to kind of your point, I think that, you know, we as a nation understand that the issues don't end with the tribal membership. I think that the issues in Lake County are from, you know, we all to backtrack a little bit, I think COVID actually taught us all that we are, I hope it taught most people, that we are all people. We are all at some level in this together, whether we like each other or we don't. You know, this virus didn't see color line. Well, didn't see color lines. Affected colors differently, but that's a whole nother thing, but I think with these issues that you're talking about, we've actually reached out to the commissioners to look at things such as a joint justice center. The drug court that Lake County is doing is something that I feel the tribe could model and incorporate some of our traditional values into, and so it's something that with addiction and all the collateral issues that come from that, and the mental health issues that we have, we need to really work together. And 280, whether which side you're on or not, it really doesn't really matter. We need to get to the core issues here. We need to get to a place where we're not letting, whether you have an R or a D behind your affiliation matter, or whether you're enrolled or you're not. I mean, it's something that we are facing the same issues. Addiction is horrible. Mental health is horrible. And a lot of these are occurring issues, I'm sorry, that are a result of one another. And I think that, some of the things we've talked about here, that mental health is something that's really important right now that we really need to look at and address, and not just pay it lip service. And I think that, federal funding for something like that is just as important as, the criminal system, because you can't incarcerate mental illness out of people. You can't incarcerate addiction out of someone. And at the root of these issues, that's what we really got to look at. And so for us to sit here and squabble over who's going to pay for something is ridiculous. And it just feels like it's an excuse. It's an excuse to put blame on another group. And, we're in a position now that, to be blunt, we can push back now, and we will. And, we are, as a tribe, we are in a great position right now. And going forward, we are going to do everything we can to make our community better, our reservation better, and we're going to look at that as a holistic, not just our own people. And that's something that you as leaders, I hope you take that back to Helena and really truly look at tribes as what we are, and that we are a partner here. We are, depending on who you talk to, we are either dual citizens or we are just citizens of our own nation. But we also have a compassionate side, and we want to help the people that influence us as well. So thank you.
Go ahead, Representative Reed.
Thank you, Chairman Matt. Councilman Charlo, if I forwarded that I was in any way accusatory to the tribe, I am not. My issue is with the state of Montana. The state of Montana, the law actually states that they are assuming that burden, and the county has assumed that burden, and the state has failed, other than the normal county relationship between any county and the state. But there's an additional burden that because of Public Law 280 and the state's agreement, the party that has not held its feet to the fire is the state. It's not the tribe. And it's the county has assumed that role, and that's the reason the bill was brought forward. I think the relationship between Lake County and the tribe is an absolutely excellent one when it comes to policing. And in fact, on my own property, sometimes if I've had a problem in the past, sometimes the first responder is a tribal policeman, and he is just as welcome as anybody there. So that's not my reasoning for it is bringing the issue up is that we all need to work with the state for the additional funding, which will support everybody in Lake County. Tribal members, county county people, everybody. I think it's, my point being for the whole bill was Montana State needs to step up to the plate and actually step up to what they had agreed to in 1963. Not so much, I have no issues with the tribe on this. And I think the tribe is doing an excellent job with their relationship with the county on certain aspects. But the agreement, the agreement is, in my issue, is with the state and the county, and the tribe happens to be just part of that discussion.
Anybody else? Have we covered all the issues everybody came with? Okay. Well, I appreciate you guys coming today. I think the best thing we can do is all sit in a room and, like Martin said, it's been a tough year, but it's taught us a lot, that we can continue to correspond like the last meeting we had Zoom, but it's been difficult, but COVID's had no boundaries, that's the one thing that it did teach us, so. But I appreciate everybody's questions and comments, and I look forward to working with you all this next year again. And I really do think that education would be the tool. When they talked about the law, having that training would really help, because people don't understand that we're not all alike. So, but that was a very good comment and would be worth the state's time in taking an orientation and including that. Every treaty is different, So thank you. And Hope, do you have anything with, I know the closing, we're supposed to go till 3 o'clock and then recess at 3:15. Was there anything else we needed to cover before?
Madam Vice Chair, we were talking about maybe, we have some gifts for you from the State Tribal Relations, but we have on the agenda public comment. So I think what we'll do is wait on that until the public comment is done, and then we do have some gifts that we'd like to present to the council.
Okay. There's some public comment. Okay. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Just because we're here today is no sign we're done. We still got just about 2 years to make law, write bills. If you come up with anything, get a hold of it, any one of us, to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Madam Chair, then it looks like if no one's willing to comment, usually what we do at State Tribal Relations, first of all, thank you for allowing us to come and just at Nation to Nation, talk to everyone here. We have an opportunity to hear directly from all of you in terms of the issues, and like Representative Smith said, that certainly this is just the beginning. The idea with the State Tribal Relations Interim Committee is that we are discussing different issues. We also are given assignments. This time we have no assignments. There's some areas that we are bringing forward. And so one of the things we discussed amongst ourselves, so is some of the things that you hit upon today, which is the which is the voting rights issue, looking at also the issue of jurisdiction, particularly of MMIP, MMIW issues in being able to bring justice for the people, but also be able to have that communication across. The issue with broadband, it's because Montana is so rural. Those are some things that we are certainly looking at in terms of trying to come with some solution so that we can have that last mile with the infrastructure, but also have the capability to have the not just have cell service as or satellite service as the only way in terms of providing service for our people. And then again, and we've hit upon a lot of different issues today, but these are things that we certainly will take with us. And again, we will be having other meetings and we'll be inviting people to participate or to come forward. And so we just wanted to come here. We wanted to listen and have a conversation with you. And like the others have said, first of all, you know, I applaud CSKT, the council, for being progressive in providing a lobbyist for them. And since, you know, and that has helped, like Representative Running Wolf had said. And we do applaud Jordan. He's still here, and the team, Rhonda and some others, in Ryan, in terms with the water compact issue that was brought forward in 17. All of those things, it's been Representative Smith and I have been involved in that. I think as the senior legislators here, we've seen a lot of going back and forth. And part of it is I believe that I'm glad he did bring the issue up. We've talked about it, which is education, knowing the history of the people, the Native people of Montana, and the legal aspects of that. And when we have a 40% turnover, often in the legislature, having new people come in, 50% of that legislature is from out of state. Most of them are not Montanans, born and raised here. So that causes more problems. And so educating the state legislators in Native American people, 8% of the state, which is that population, and 50% of our people, all of our people are in our major cities. And so to educate them on that. So it's something that, and I do applaud, we've asked the council from time to time to bring forward information on behalf of the American Indian Caucus and other tribes. So I do want to thank you for your leadership in that and your assistance, because as American Indian Caucus, we would not have been able to make the inroads without you to come alongside and help us with that. So having said that, I'm going to ask, so we'd like just to present these gifts that we've brought for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Paraguay. Okay, was there any other closing comments anybody would like to make, or I do apologize. There's a couple people in the back that did not get introduced. If you want to introduce yourself. Well, I'm glad you could make it, both of you. I got to visit with you over lunch, so I'm glad that you did come in and spend the time with us this afternoon. Okay. Is there anything else, Hope, that you had, or?
Madam Chair, Vice Chair, and members, I would simply like to extend my gratitude to your staff who was so helpful in organizing everything. Jennifer Trahan, who suggested the wonderful catering today from Little Montana. A big thank you to Sean Perry and his crew there. And also to Rick, and I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your last name again. I apologize. Help me out. Rick, also very helpful. Ryan Rushi as well. So thank you for making this so easy to organize and to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You travel safe home.
We're in recess till tomorrow. Thank you.